Imagine vanishing, entirely alone, in a locked room. It is one of the most primal, terrifying fears a human being can possess. Not just the fear of the end itself, but the profound, crushing dread that no one will ever know you were gone. That the walls will eventually fall, the dust will settle, and the universe will simply move on as if you never existed. Your memories, your loves, your hatreds, your favorite songs, the specific way you laughed, all erased, reduced to absolutely nothing. Now, take that horrifying, isolating fear of the individual and project it onto the entire human race. Look up at the night sky. We live on a tiny, fragile speck of dust, suspended in a sunbeam, surrounded by a void so vast, so freezing, and so hostile that the human mind physically recoils from comprehending it. For all of our recorded history, we have called out into this void. We built giant telescopes, we sent out radio waves, we looked for gods and guardians among the stars. And the universe's response? Deafening, absolute silence. In 1977, the human race decided it could not bear that silence any longer. If no one was going to call out to us, we were going to leave a message. We were going to hurl a message in a bottle into the darkest, deepest ocean of interstellar space. NASA launched Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. Their primary scientific mission was to observe Jupiter and Saturn, but their true, unspoken mission was profoundly existential. Bolted to the side of these machines were 12-inch gold-plated copper discs, the Voyager Golden Records. Spearheaded by the legendary astronomer Carl Sagan, a small committee was tasked with an impossible, almost mythical burden. They had to compress the entirety of the human experience, the history of Earth, our art, our biology, and our souls, into a single disc with a lifespan of over 1 billion years. If you look at the contents, it is breathtaking. They included the sound of wind, rain, a mother kissing her child, a chimpanzee, a tractor. They included Bach's symphonies, Chuck Berry's guitar, the haunting chants of Navajo tribes, and greetings in 55 different human languages. They even included the recorded brain waves of a young woman who had just fallen in love, pressed directly into the grooves of the copper. When you hear about it, it sounds like the most romantic, beautiful gesture our species has ever made, a cosmic time capsule of our absolute greatness. But if we pull back the curtain of this cosmic romance, if we strip away the PR and look at it through the cold, unforgiving lens of human psychology, we might realize a very disturbing truth. The Golden Record is not a documentary of Earth. It is the greatest, most elaborate, and most desperate lie humanity has ever told. Now, take that horrifying, isolating fear of the individual and drift into the silent, deep ocean in space. Why did I call the Golden Record a lie? To truly understand this, we need to bring in Carl Jung. As we have discussed in previous videos, Jung theorized that every human being is fundamentally split. We have the persona, the mask we wear for society. The persona is our idealized self. It's the polite smile we give to our coworkers. It's the carefully curated photographs we post on social media to make our lives look completely perfect and put together. But beneath that mask, buried deep in the unconscious, lies the shadow. The shadow is where we hide everything we are deeply ashamed of, our repressed desires, our capacity for extreme cruelty, our traumas, our prejudices, our selfishness. The shadow is the dark, muddy root of the human soul. When Carl Sagan and his team created the Golden Record, they didn't create a genuine reflection of humanity. They created humanity's ultimate, cosmic persona. If an extraterrestrial civilization intercepts Voyager 1,000,000 years from now, what will they think of us? They will hear the laughter of children and the intricate genius of classical music. They will see photographs of humans eating together, dancing, smiling, and building great structures. They will think we were a species of absolute peace, harmony, and boundless intellect. Do you know what they won't see? They won't see the mushroom clouds rising over cities, vaporizing thousands of innocent people in a fraction of a second. They won't hear the agonizing screams from the trenches of our great global conflicts. They won't see the terrible injustices, the forced labor, the starving populations, and the endless, cyclical greed that causes us to exploit the very planet that birthed us. Carl Sagan and his committee made a conscious, psychological choice to completely hide our shadow. They acted like a cosmic narcissist, photoshopping our deepest, darkest flaws out of the picture before sending it to the stars. Jung warned us, a tree whose roots do not reach down to hell cannot grow its branches to heaven. To be a complete entity, you must acknowledge your darkness. By omitting the violence, the pain, and the tragedy of human history, the Golden Record ceased to be a true representation of us. It became a fairy tale, a fictional story about a perfect, utopian planet that never actually existed. But let's ask the deeper psychological question. Why did we lie? Were we just trying to impress the aliens? Were we just trying to look good for our galactic neighbors? No. To understand the psychology behind the Golden Record, you have to look at the exact moment in time it was forged, the absolute height of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union had tens of thousands of destructive weapons pointed at each other's cities. The prevailing mood of the era was not hope, it was apocalyptic, existential paranoia. Humanity was standing at the absolute edge of a cliff, fully capable, for the first time in history, of wiping its own existence off the map with the push of a red button. The doomsday clock was ticking mere inches away from midnight. In the face of that overwhelming terror, the Golden Record takes on a completely different meaning. It wasn't just a message to aliens, it was a message to ourselves. Think about it from a psychological perspective. When a person is completely overwhelmed by the crushing weight of existence, when they are entirely consumed by self-hatred and standing on the brink of absolute ruin, what does a therapist do? They try to remind the individual of their good qualities. They try to show them the beauty they have experienced, the love they have shared, the art they have enjoyed. In 1977, humanity was on the verge of self-destruction. Carl Sagan looked at a world deeply infected with paranoia, a world ready to burn itself to ash, and he curated a mixtape. He compiled the most beautiful sounds and images we had ever produced, not to brag to extraterrestrials, but to remind us. It was a desperate psychological anchor. It was as if he was saying, look at what we are capable of. Look at the music we make. Look at the love we share. Please, let's not throw all this away. There is a devastatingly sad quote from Sagan regarding the record. He said, "The spacecraft will be encountered and the record played only if there are advanced spacefaring civilizations in interstellar space, but the launching of this bottle into the cosmic ocean says something very hopeful about life on this planet. Hopeful, or perhaps utterly tragic."
Let's do a literary comparison. In Dostoevsky's White Nights, we are introduced to the dreamer, a man who is so cripplingly lonely, so isolated from the warmth of human connection, that he walks the cold, damp streets of St. Petersburg at night, having imaginary conversations with the buildings and the bridges. He projects his desperate desire for connection onto strangers because the reality of his isolation is simply too painful to endure. Isn't humanity just the dreamer, but on a cosmic scale? We look up at the infinite expanse of the Milky Way, terrified of our own isolation. The Fermi paradox haunts our greatest scientific minds. The universe is billions of years old. It contains billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars. Statistically, the sky should be teeming with life. There should be vast empires, radio signals, and yet nothing. The great silence. We are the lonely man wandering the streets of St. Petersburg. The silence of the universe is so deafening, so psychologically crushing, that we pressed our favorite songs onto a piece of copper and threw it into the dark, just so we could imagine that someone, somewhere, might eventually listen. As you sit in your room watching this video, Voyager 1 is over 15 billion miles away from Earth. It has officially left the solar system. It is traveling at 38,000 miles per hour through the interstellar medium, the pitch-black, freezing emptiness between the stars. Its nuclear power source is fading. Soon, its cameras will permanently shut down. Its thrusters will freeze solid. It will become completely deaf, dumb, and blind, a cold, silent piece of metal coasting through the eternal dark. But bolted to its side, protected by an aluminum jacket, the golden record will remain pristine. Let me give you a perspective of time that will make your stomach drop. In about 5 billion years, our sun will run out of its primary fuel. It will begin its final cataclysmic stage. It will expand into a red giant, growing so massive that it will engulf Mercury. It will engulf Venus, and it will engulf the Earth. The oceans will boil off into space. The mountains will melt into liquid glass. Every book ever written, every painting ever painted, every empire that rose and fell, every conflict fought, every tear shed will be incinerated into cosmic dust. Everything we are and everything we were will be completely erased from the physical universe. But Voyager? Voyager will still be flying. Long after the Earth is gone, long after the last human breath has been drawn, that little golden disk will still be drifting through the Milky Way. It has a physical life expectancy of at least 1 billion, perhaps up to 5 billion years. It will outlive its creators. It will outlive the very planet that birthed it. It will be the last surviving artifact of the human race. And what a beautiful, heartbreaking artifact it is. A lie? Yes, we hid our darkest hours, our greed and our madness. We sent the universe a heavily edited, romanticized version of a deeply flawed, chaotic species. But maybe, just maybe, that is the most profoundly human thing we could have possibly done. We didn't send out our reality, we sent out our ideal. We sent out the version of ourselves that we always wished, deep in our hearts, that we could be. If in 1 billion years a strange, unimaginable creature intercepts that silent probe, pulls out the golden disc and places the needle in the groove, they won't hear the sound of our cruelty. They won't hear the noise of our failures. They will hear the sound of a mother kissing her child. They will hear the sweet, melancholy notes of a violin. They will hear the brainwaves of a young woman falling in love. They will witness a fragile species that was terrified of the dark, terrified of being forgotten, reaching out into the endless void and whispering, "We were here. We were imperfect, and we are gone. But for a brief, beautiful moment in the dark, we made music."